Okay, we're on to scene 9, the Greenwich Meridian, the final confrontation. So the last scene in the play. Teacher can say, well, what's going to happen here, guys? Can I actually ask all of you, and let's just go around. So summarise it, what do you think is going to happen? I think they're all going to die. All these annoying children are going to die. They're not annoying, says the assessor. They're actually really interesting characters, so don't talk like that. It's not very pleasant, is it? And they're based on real students. Didn't you read that? Okay, teacher can intervene. Let's be pleasant to each other, not get bickering. Can I move on to the motivator? What do you think is going to happen? I actually think they're all going to live and everything's going to turn out really happily, and somehow they kill off the time devil. I have a feeling. I don't have a feeling like this is one of those sort of really, really dark scripts. Anyway, we'll see. And let's move on to the questioner. What do you think? Well, I'm going to ask a question like, what is the point of this whole script? I mean, the learning to learn person could then reply, well, we've actually learned a lot doing this script, haven't we? It has been quite difficult, I've got to be honest, quite confusing, but we've learned a lot about summarising, haven't we? Because there's been so many different things to summarise and get our heads around. I think that, and in terms of what's going to happen, I think I'm actually going to back up the summariser. I think this is a kind of dark script, isn't it? There's a lot of bad stuff happens. I don't think it's going to end happily at all. Okay, guys, let's read through to the end and find out. Okay, so everyone reads through to the end, and let's just hand over to the summariser. Can you kick off the summary of what you think has happened? Well, this is interesting, isn't it? So I've got to be honest, I didn't expect this at all. So everyone sort of lands up on Podrick's comet, don't they? And they're all sort of sailing towards Earth, and they have to make a decision as to whether they create life on Earth or not. Hang on a minute, assessor interrupts. It isn't, to begin with, all of them that make the decision as to whether life is created on Earth. Initially, to begin with, it is Podrick, isn't it? He's given that choice, but then all of them together decide to work together and they hold hands and they sort of meditate, don't they? And as the boulder, the comet or whatever it is, sort of lands on Earth, they kind of wish everyone well, don't they? And that seems to sort of create a new future for the Earth, and they sort of wake up, don't they? Yeah, our motivator can interrupt here. Yeah, they sort of wake up in a world where none of the bad things have happened and everything is good, and so they wake up in a kind of a good world, and it's sort of at the beginning of the script again. So they're just about to go to school, aren't they? And everything has turned out well. Everything's full of compassion and kindness, so there is a happy ending. So I think the summariser and the learning to learn chief were a bit wrong there, weren't they? And learning to learn chief might say, yeah, actually I was wrong. Questioner, right, okay. My question is, again, why are we reading about school kids deciding whether life should be created on Earth? I mean, it's so obviously not something ever going to happen. And let's have a motivator. You come and motivate me as to why we should be reading about this. Motivator. Well, actually, I think it's a really interesting question. If you had the choice, would you create life on Earth? And come on, I'm going to throw it back to you, questioner. What would you think? And actually, you know what, when I think about it, because there has been a lot of suffering on Earth, hasn't there? And I guess, like billions of people have died and lots of nasty things have happened. And if you really had the choice, what would you do? That's a really good debate to have, but let's, says the teacher, but let's just return back to the key questions. Are there any questions we can ask about this to better understand things? Assessor says, I would say we got the overall kind of gist of this, but I mean, what's happening to all these devils here, and what's happened to the time devil? I don't really get that. And what's this bit about how, like, you know, history's been changed? Can someone help us out here? Let's go back to the summarizer. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? So the time devil seems to get sort of really upset, doesn't he? Because all the kids club together and they sort of the time devil doesn't like it because the kids sort of wish the earth well in their meditation, don't they? And then people are going to be kind to each other, and he sort of gets destroyed by their kindness. I think that's what's happening, isn't it? There's no disastrous climate change, no nuclear weapons and terrorism. Everything's good, isn't it? So that's quite interesting. So that's actually a really interesting and good question to ask, isn't it? And then let's finish off this little brief reciprocal teaching with what have we learned about our learning here? Well, let's just go around. Summarizer. I have learned the importance of trying to work out a summary in your mind and say what is going on out aloud. It really helps. I guess if you're doing this sort of thing in the exam, you might just have to try and say it in your head, like go through in your head what's going on. But it's really helpful to talk to people, and it's really made me understand what's going on. Assessor, what do you think? Yeah, I think it's really good to like ask the basic question, like how much are we understanding of this, because it makes you go back over something. So we've done this a few times, haven't we, where we kind of got a few things, but then we're shaky on a few of the details, and we've gone and discussed that, and that's really helped. Motivator, what have you got to say for this? Well, I think we've learnt about motivating each other, haven't we? The importance of, like, you know, being positive about what you're reading, and, you know, trying to address some of the kind of awkward questions that you have. Questioner, what have you learnt? I've learnt to ask difficult questions about a text and see what the answers are, because I have asked difficult questions about, like, why is all this stuff happening and what's going on, and that getting the answers has been really helpful. Learn to learn, Chief. What have you learnt? I think we've learnt that there are a lot of different things that make you a good reader, and we've beginning to learn the kind of skills that are going to turn us into a really powerful reader. I think one thing some of our discussions could have done more of is about skimming and scanning back over text and rereading things, because I think actually I'm thinking, you know what, we need to get a bit more practice in that, because we've got the overall gist of things, but we haven't gone into massive detail. And the other thing I think I noticed is we haven't really analysed the language in huge depth either. Teacher, what's your point? I'd like to back up what the Learning to Learn Chief has said, you know, that we haven't done huge amounts of learning language analysis, but the first step to doing the language analysis is understanding what's going on. So I think now we're in a good state to go back over this text and, like, analyze the language and the effect of the language and the dramatic language and the imagery and all of those things, you know, using things like Da Forest and P paragraphs to kind of help us. And I feel like really confident I could do that now, or think about those things, because I basically understand what's going on.